I'm John Rodgers from Cuyahoga Falls, and we're going to look at a few high points along the Hudson. This is the lower Hudson, and most of this was built around a short tour, about 4 days, through Stan Hewitt, and Neil Cheemer was the guide. The first place we actually stopped was the Corning Glass on the way over to the Hudson Valley. Corning's in New York State, south of the Finger Lakes and just north of Pennsylvania. And here's the big museum and so forth there. And some of the things that they have in this glassworks are really exceptional. This small head that you're looking at is thousands of years old. I don't think I ever heard exactly how old, but it is extremely old, made of glass. And all of these pieces are in the Corning Museum of Glass. Now, sometimes it's fairly difficult in the lighting to get good stuff, so I try and take enough pictures so I can select from them at least a few good ones, using high-speed film and so forth. And everything you're looking at is built around glass. This was a nice spot. We had already made quite a bit of the trip over to the Hudson Valley, and then just a short break, and to see something really quite interesting. It had been many years since I had been to Corning. Now, this is my own map of the Hudson River Valley. Here's Poughkeepsie up here. New York City is all the way down here. Here's Poughkeepsie. Hyde Park up there, and we will go to Roosevelt's place in Hyde Park. And we use this Newburgh Bridge, and we use the Bear Mountain Bridge, and we use the Tappan Zee Bridge. This is the area of Lyndhurst, Sunnyside, and Kykuit. And you'll see a beautiful church there also. We stayed at the Pearl River Hilton over here, just over the line from New Jersey. Here's New York over here, and here's New Jersey. And when we went to an old 76 house here for dinner, I have a picture of the folder. It was night, and I don't have a picture of the house. And then I want to show you some stuff about West Point. Now, virtually everything that you see will be from this trip, but I have added some stuff from West Point, because I've been to West Point any number of times, and we did not take an extensive tour around when we were there. This is the Palisades. The Palisades rise on the west side of the Hudson River. Actually, this is in the autumn. And they extend all the way down New Jersey as well. As a matter of fact, my wife's hometown was at the base of the Palisades, but between the Palisades to the back and the Hudson River to the front, with Manhattan just across the way. We're at the U.S. Military Academy, and what you're looking at looks like graffiti, but that is actually part of the Berlin Wall that you heard so much about. Years ago, my wife and I stood in front of the Berlin Wall, and we actually went up on a tower, a platform, and looked across the Berlin Wall. That's when it was still active, separating that city of Berlin. This is the Hudson River looking north from West Point. See, West Point is the name of the town, and we're at the Military Academy. That's the Eisenhower Hall that you're seeing there. And then this is the Cadet Chapel, and this was from the outside and the inside is from a previous trip to the Military Academy. That is the Civil War monument. And these things around the corners that you see a replica of a little, or facsimile, you might say, of a little cannon, those are all marked with battles from the Civil War. And the guide this time, for the very first time since I have been there, said that there were 60 major Civil War battles. And in 56 of them, military academy people commanded both sides. And in the other 4, military academy people commanded one side. Right on the ends of the cannons there are marked the different battles of the Civil War. And then over here, this is the parade grounds, but you never hear it called parade grounds up there. They call it the plains. This is some of the barracks here, and that is that chapel that we were just in. And this is part of the chain put across the Hudson River during the American Revolutionary War to stop the British movement up the river. It was successful. Really, really hard to imagine a chain that size stretched across the Hudson River, but they did it. And then we come to the Douglas MacArthur Memorial. See, Douglas MacArthur was one of the commandants of the academy at West Point, the military academy. And this is the words that he used in the last speech he gave at West Point. He spoke to the cadet corps, and he spoke to them about duty, honor, country. And here's the statue associated with those words. Regardless of what you think of MacArthur, and there are all kinds of opinions about him, that speech was one of the most memorable ones. He was presented the Thayer Medal, the highest medal of the military academy, on that same occasion. And this man is General George Patton. Have a little story about George Patton. He was not very academically minded when he went through West Point. And he told somebody one time, the library, I don't even know where the library is. So when they raised the money to put up this beautiful statue of him, very lifelike, if you remember any of the pictures from World War II. But anyhow, when they did that, they put it in front of the library. Now, when you normally put a statue up in front of a public building, you face the person out from that, like they did with George Washington in front of the Washington Barracks. For George Patton, they turned him, and he is, for eternity, facing the library at West Point, that he said he didn't even know where it was. He knows now, if you can believe a statue can know. Right in front of the library, as you go in, is something that I had a long interest in, because I had seen a facsimile of it down at the Cowboy Hall of Fame. Laura Frazier's History of the World at the library entrance. And it was sort of an interesting thing to be able to photograph it there. Laura Frazier and James Frazier were man and wife. In addition, I think in many ways she was a better sculptor than he was, but anyhow, he's the one that did the beautiful end of the trail, and he did the Buffalo Nickel and the Navy Cross, among other things. So a lot of history there. And here's one of my favorite people, Eisenhower. Eisenhower statue faces out on the plains. And here are the commandant's quarters at the point, and the stadium. And this is the Colonel Thayer statue, and Thayer was is considered the father of the military academy. He's the one that started it. Incidentally, Thomas Jefferson didn't like organizations and all, but The military academy was started under the time when Jefferson was president. And here's the statue of Washington that I mentioned out in front of the Washington Hall, it's called. Now this man has a special attraction for the students, especially if they're running behind in their studies. It said, this is Major General John Sedgwick's statue, and it said if you rub the spur on the back of his foot, and it is polished really, it'll help you pass an exam. But you have to be out of the barracks at a time when you are not allowed out of the barracks in order for this to work. So it's a little legend among the students. Over in the cemetery, right close by the plains, not far away, this is the grave of Robert Anderson. Now, Robert Anderson was the defender of Fort Sumter. He commanded Fort Sumter at the start of the Civil War. And then over here is a better known one, and this is General George Custer. This is where he was buried. Many of the men who were lost in the Battle of the Little Bighorn are buried out in Montana, but Custer's body was brought back here. And then this one, I don't know anything about this general, Brigadier General Egbert Veal, but this Egyptian monument intrigued me for a cemetery up in New York. It was sort of interesting. And then here is one of Ike looking out across the plains. Ike was in the class that was called the class the stars fell on, because so many of the people in Ike's class became generals, including himself. This is a culinary school at Poughkeepsie that I don't know too much about, but some of the ladies in our group had heard all about it and were intrigued by at least passing by it. And we're heading up to Hyde Park. Now, I have pictures of the Churchill Memorial, which is a little chapel out in Fulton, Missouri. And I wondered why pieces were cut out of the Berlin Wall at that place. These are the pieces that were cut out of the Berlin Wall that is depicted, that is on display at Fulton, Missouri, where Churchill made his famous Sinews of Peace, which everybody called the Iron Curtain speech. These are the pieces that were cut out of it at Roosevelt's place at Hyde Park. The place is actually called Springwood, but you never hear people talking about it that way. They just call it Hyde Park. And he was the 32nd president. And I got this picture of FDR and Fowler. Fowler was his Scotty from Timeline, which is the Ohio Historical Society publication. Roosevelt wasn't seeing too many places without Fowler with him. And this is a grave site at Springwood of FDR and Eleanor, his wife. And a lot of the roses in the area were this one, Peace Rose. And then here is the home. Now, some of these I was able, they let you photograph in here, but sometimes it's fairly difficult. But this is one of the bedrooms, and then this is another one I was able to photograph, and then the dining room, this one, and the living room I photographed from the National Park Service folder. See, this place is under the jurisdiction of the National Park Service. And from the back of the house, the little bit of river that you can see there, that's the Hudson River. And then here is sort of the back and the side of the house. They didn't know how to bring people down, so they put that up, and it's a very effective way because you end up on the top floor and then you come down that route. And then going over towards the library and the museum, here is this bust of FDR. And then I jumped ahead of myself and to show you a Churchill painting that's in the museum. But I showed it to you before the building so that I would put those two men together. And all through before the war, before World War II and on into it, they were together in their thinking, quite often, not always together on their thinking, but they worked together in order to fight the Nazi threat. This is the museum and the library. And the Oval Office desk is supposed to be just as he left it in the White House. And then one parting shot of the house. Now we stayed on that bank of the river, the east bank of the river, and came on down to a little town called Cold Springs. This is the downtown, and then over here is down by the river. A little square down there with some redone buildings and so forth. And here's the mighty Hudson River coming towards us. One of the gardens right there in Cold Spring. And now it almost looks like we haven't moved too much, but we have moved over to Garrison on the Hudson, and this is the house called Boscobel. This is in the grounds of the house called Boscobel, and looking right through all the way there is the Hudson River again. This house was begun in 1804 by States Morris Dykeman. He was a New York, it's New York Federal Domestic Architecture. It was home to him and Elizabeth Corn Dykeman from 1804 to 1823. It was moved in 1950, in the 1950s, from 15 miles south and placed here piece by piece. Support from Lilla Atchison Wallace, this is Reader's Digest money, restored and opened to the public in 1961, and you're looking straight out on the Hudson again. And this is the house. We'll be in it in a moment. We actually had to wait a fair length of time to actually get into it because of the lack of guides. See, right over on that hill, actually back over in here, is the military academy. So we're not far away. There are no bridges along here. You can't get across, but we're not really very far from the military academy. It is a beautiful house, and you'll like the inside. Well, we're inside now. And these were from postcards. They didn't allow photography in. This is the entrance hall and the stairs. And this is the front drawing room. Now, between the postcard and the way I saw it, it's pretty close, pretty close. You could see occasionally some differences, but not too much. So what you're seeing is pretty much what I saw. And this is the upstairs sitting room. And then this is Mrs. Dykeman's chamber. And I've gone well away from the house now, the back of the house. See, the front faces the Hudson River, so I've gone to the back. And then I'll have a few more views of the garden before we move on. The Hudson River again. West Point is right back over in, well, you can't quite see it, one of the neat roses. Oh, this is the edge of the military academy up here. Thought I had it in there, but I wasn't sure. And the place is called Boscobel. You're going to get the idea that I like that view of the Hudson River. And finally, through the fruit trees, back to the Hudson River again as we leave Boscobel. We're on our way back to our lodging for the night. And I thought I'd take one picture. My wife and I don't generally stay in this kind of place. We stay in a little old prairie motel or something like this, but this is the Pearl River Hilton, which was our lodging for these four nights. And then I mentioned that I would show you the old 76 house, but I could not take my own pictures because it was dark and we never got back to it. But you can see it's at Tappan, New York, which is on the west side of the Hudson River. Now, the reason I wanted to show you this was built in 1755. It was a meeting place for patriots. Major Andre, a British spy communicating directly with Benedict Arnold, who was commandant of West Point, who turned traitor, but Andre was held prisoner here in this house before being hanged close by. He's buried in Westminster Abbey, London. And then George Washington did dine in this same place since he had his headquarters in Tappan for a time. Then the next morning we went over to this place. This is a little church, and I'm not absolutely sure how to pronounce the name of the place, but let's call it the Union Church of Pocantico Hills. Pocantico Hills. That's the way I'll do it. An active, independent Protestant church. Members of the Rockefeller family were among the founding members of the church in 1915, and the stained glass windows were commissioned by the Rockefellers. And the building that you see was built in 1921 on land owned by the Rockefeller family. These windows are also from postcards. There will be about 4 by this man, Mark Chagall, C-H-A-G-A-L-L. And the first one is the crucifixion. This was in memory of Michael Clark Rockefeller, Governor Rockefeller's son, who died in New Guinea. And this is the Good Samaritan, John D. Rockefeller Jr.'s memorial window. And then this is Elijah, and this is in memory of Lillian T. Bowles and Eunice Turner. I don't have any further information on them. And then the rose window was done by Henry Mantis very shortly before he died. And this is in memory of Abby Ulrich Rockefeller. This was John D. Rockefeller Jr.'s wife. She was a founder of the Museum of Modern Art down in New York City in 1929. And we have, a short while before I took these pictures, we had been to the cloisters, and that's part of the museum. But it's old stuff, not modern art. It's part of the Museum of Art of New York City. This window was dedicated on Mother's Day in 1956, 6 years after Abby's death. And if you go outside, this is the rose window from the outside. And then the bell tower, and one last view of the church. A lot of, if you're not aware of it, a lot of Rockefeller money, usually directed by John D. Rockefeller Jr., a lot of their money went into the national park system. Half of the purchase price of the Great Smokies National Park came from the Laura Spelman Rockefeller Memorial. And then we are at the little visitor center, which is where you go for the Phillipsburg Manor, which you're looking at, which we did not go into, and for Kycut, the Rockefellers' mansion up on the hill, so to speak. So the visitor center is shared. But this is Phillipsburg Manor, which looks like an intriguing place, and I think we will get there in the not too distant future. And then in the visitor center is this painting of George Washington. And now the thing that prompted the whole tour was Kycut. And this is spelled K-Y-K-U-I-T, and they pronounce it Kycut. It's home of the Rockefellers, and it's North Tarratan and that same Pocatello Hills of North Tarratan. It was completed in, that's one of the outer buildings. It was completed in 1913, and it was home to 4 generations, but it's only been open to the public since 1994, very recently. Tours are restricted to 18, with a shuttle picking you up at the visitor's gate. And this shuttle takes you in through the security gate and up to the house that you're looking at. And your guide stays with you for the entire time, about 2.5 hours. And you saw the building and the grassy areas on the way in, and then this fountain. You saw that fountain before, but now I'm standing right in with my back to the house, looking out in that direction one more time. And then from a postcard, somebody was able to get out beyond there, and there's the statue we're talking about, and I was standing over there in front of the house looking this way when I took that last one. And yes, that is the Hudson River flowing behind there. We had a very good tour guide. I suppose most of them are. But she really knew all about it. And again, having to go to postcard pictures, this is the music room. And then the dining room, and that's John D. Rockefeller Jr. portrait over the mantel there. And this is the room that has the portrait of John D. Rockefeller Sr. This is the man who made a lot of that money. And then here's a room with a picture of Abraham Lincoln. Out in the gardens, and there's a lot to see, a lot of pictures to take and all sorts of things out there. And we are right out on the porch. And now we're outside of the house so that you can actually take pictures. But this gives you a view out over the Hudson River. There are several different levels to the garden. I'm looking down on one, but we're going to stay at the same level where I am for a time. That's that porch where we were. No, I'm sorry, this is a porch on the side of the house. This is another garden. A lot of statuary. little fountains, little ponds, all kinds of things. You're going to see that statue in the middle from several different directions as I move around. You were blocked from going into this, so I don't have too much of a story on that, but I thought it was rather intriguing anyhow. And there's the house again that you can see. This is a fountain right in front of me in the foreground. Quite a little place. I can imagine what it takes to keep everything clipped and the lawn ready and so forth. And then are scattered around the grounds in different places some modern sculpture. Abby, John D. Rockefeller Jr.'s wife, loved modern sculpture and he didn't. But anyhow, there's a lot of modern sculpture around. And here's some of the details off of those different ironworks and iron railings and so forth that you see. Really, really lifelike. And there's a little grotto right down below that porch where we first came out of the house. Now we're making our way over to the other side of the house. And these are the rose gardens. And finally, we're down by the coach barn. The shuttle picked you up, took you down there, and then we're waiting on it now. And this time it will take us all the way back to the visitors center. And we have come back and we have moved down now that same day, but we have moved down to Sunnyside, which is our home of Washington Irving, also a Tarrytown. It's not very far from Kaikit, as a matter of fact. And here's the Washington Irving himself. This is where he lived. This is his home. And this is the source of the stories of Rip Van Winkle and Sleepy Hollow and Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman. If you haven't read them for a while, or if you've never read them, it's worth it. They're very, very short. And you get an idea and a little bit of a feel for this area. And we're going towards the house now. This is the house. Again, I had to go to postcards, and here's his study. It's not a very big house, and it's nothing of the luxury of the Rockefeller place. Here's the parlor, decorated for Christmas. The dining room. We were there in June, and so that picture of the parlor looks different from what I saw. All the rest looks pretty much the same. Yeah, I got this one labeled as the parlor the rest of the year. And here's that tower that he had put in. This is one of the local characters who talks to tourists and so forth at the back of the house as you come out. Dressed in the period. As a matter of fact, maybe he was Rip Van Winkle, I'm not sure. How'd you like to go to sleep and wake up 20 years later? You think you could cope with what's there? It's an old sycamore tree up by the place where you first come in. There's a gift shop there. That's where you actually present your tickets and pick up your guide, and then the guide is with you till you come back up there. And then I wanted you to see one of those bridges that we use coming across. This is the Tappan Zee Bridge, and I was able to photograph this right from his place. And then if you look down very closely on the horizon, I'm on the Tappan Zee now, that is the skyline of Manhattan at New York City. Down the Hudson, you are that close to New York City, seeing all these wonderful sights from the Tappan Zee Bridge. And then the last place we will visit is Lyndhurst. Lyndhurst is not quite bordering, but fairly close to Sunnyside, also in Tarrytown. This is a Gothic revival mansion. It was designed in 1838 by Alexander Jackson Davis, and it was designed for William Paulding. But the man who really worked it over was George Merritt. He had Davis, who had designed it, double the size in 1864 and 65, and that's when he gave it its present name of Lyndhurst. That is that same Tappan Zee bridge from the grounds of Lyndhurst. And then finally, Jay Gould bought it in 1880. And after the death of his second daughter, it came to the National Trust. And so that's who's handling it today. And you saw those views, but I'm back to postcards now inside. And this is the dining room. And then this is called the Art Gallery. And then I'll show you that Tiffany window in the Art Gallery. You couldn't see it very good from the last picture, just the framework of it. And then in what's known as the Cabinet Room. Very stately manor house. Really, well, they didn't call it a manor house since it's Gothic revival. It's just my term. We're out in the Rose Garden now. A few close-ups for you. I like to photograph roses. That's a pretty one. And one of the statues outside. We're on our way down now to the carriage house. A few rhododendron on the way down. The month is June. And here is the carriage house. Down in here you can get something to eat. The gift shop is down in here and so forth. And here's a sleigh on display there, and you can see a carriage back there, and there are other different things on display. I sort of like the top of it pretty much. And then one more, the front of the house, and that ends our tour of the lower Hudson River Valley.